Welcome to my week-long look at Knights of the Old Republic, or for those of you watching on Saturday, welcome to this gigantic playlist. Knights of the Old Republic, KOTOR for short, is without a doubt the most successful attempt to adapt the Star Wars universe to the video game format. While the legacy of the Star Wars prequels and some questionable games over the last few years, the infamous Dancing Han Solo for instance, has tainted the legacy of the franchise, KOTOR has tapped into the best aspects of it to remind fandom why the films became such a massive success. KOTOR is heavily influenced by the original trilogy, emulating characters and situations and things, but ultimately one is hard-pressed to criticize it for this, because in the end, KOTOR was pretty much Star Wars 2.0. This is because of the setting. While it was originally conceived of as an RPG, it was going to be set during the Clone Wars era. This was back in 2000, with the ramping up towards Episode 2 and the numerous Clone Wars tie-in works that would follow it. But BioWare was also given the option of setting it in a different era, 4,000 years before the original trilogy, which thankfully they took. While the game would have still likely stood out as a Clone Wars game, it still would have ultimately been just one of numerous things going on in this now overcrowded time period. Instead, by being set in the past, the game not only allowed greater freedom for the creative team, but also brought players to a time period that very few had likely heard of. KOTOR is set just decades after the events of the Tales of the Jedi series, a Dark Horse comic series that came out from 1993 to 1998 to explore this early era of conflict between the Old Republic and the emerging Sith threat. As Obi-Wan had said in the original film, the Jedi were guardians for over 1,000 generations, protecting the Republic from such enemies. By putting it in this era, the game was able to build upon the framework while at the same time being basically free to do what they felt like with this conflict, and giving BioWare that freedom was the best move they could have made. BioWare had emerged as a highly successful developer of RPGs, starting with a successful adaptation of Dungeons & Dragons called Baldur's Gate, and the popular Neverwinter Nights, both games for the PC and both multiplayer. But while Western RPGs in general, and MMOs in particular, are almost exclusively the domain of PCs, the overall game market for them began to decline at this time. So when they were approached by Lucasfilm, it was on the strength of their RPG reputation, but they wanted to bring that onto the next generation consoles that were emerging. A challenge to be sure, especially for a company known for the depth of story in their works, and being a console game at this time period meant no real room for multiplayer. So BioWare's game would depend on an immersive story to make for a rich single-player experience. This project is labeled a review because, well, that's basically how these things work, but I won't really be reviewing the game. I'll be doing a kind of hybrid of a Let's Play with an analysis of the science fiction work. So with that, let's get started with Knights of the Old Republic. Alright, let's see. No, you look too much like a guy who dies during the tutorial. That's better. Alright, choices are Scout, Scoundrel, or Soldier, and I'm going with Soldier since I'm going to get drafted into the military no matter what I do, so I might as well get paid for it. And I'm going to name him Traven Rod after my old high school gym teacher. Oh, by the way, part of the reason this has been in the queue for so long is that I've had the worst time trying to record this footage. There's something about the Steam version that would bug out during cinema scenes no matter what program I use to record the gameplay. So we have gone old school. This is being recorded off an original Xbox, which means that this is strictly what's on the disc. No Yavin 4 bonus, and more importantly, no patch for the bugs. Here there be dragons. And we're ready to start. KOTOR was meant to emulate the film, so the cinema scenes are cropped from the 4:3 ratio of the gameplay to, well, 2.35 to 1 ratio the films used. I'm not sure if it's precisely the same. I'm not that interested that I'm going to measure it. It also means that we get the title and the crawl, but it's far more justified than some of the other games that use it. Episode 7. In a fiendish plot to remove hope from the Alliance, the Empire has outlawed dance. Brave Jedi, following the example of Master Kevin Bacon, must get their funk on to restore freedom to the galaxy. Now, young Skywalker, you will jive. But the crawl here is actually relevant. It explains the backstory of the game to you. 4,000 years before the rise of the Galactic Empire, the Republic verges on collapse. Darth Malak, last surviving apprentice of the Dark Lord Revan, has unleashed an invincible Sith armada upon an unsuspecting galaxy. Crushing all resistance, Malak's war of conquest has left the Jedi Order scattered and vulnerable as countless knights fall in battle and many more swear allegiance to the new Sith Master. In the skies above the outer rim world of Terrace, a Jedi battle fleet engages the forces of Darth Malak in a desperate effort to halt the Sith's galactic domination. While KOTOR is set in a different era, the effort is clearly being made to emulate familiar big-screen elements to help ease the audience in. This is meant to capture the vibe of the blockade runner from the opening of the original film, even though it doesn't really look much like it. And the Sith fighters don't resemble TIE fighters, but you get the same sense of what they are. KOTOR wants to get the flavor of the film saga without being too slavish to it. Anyway, you know my luck. That's my ship, and so I get to wake up on board in this lovely condition. What did I drink last night? God, my mouth tastes like Wookiee piss.
We've been ambushed by a Sith battle fleet. The Endar Spire is under attack. Hurry up, we don't have much time.
Fuck you, you're just a tutorial. I'm going back to bed.
Now hurry up. We have to find Bastila. We have to make sure she makes it off the ship alive.
While they head into the fray, I'll explain. Bastila is a Jedi commander, although she's rather young, but she's important because she's mastered an ability called battle meditation. This isn't new. Way back in Heir to the Empire, the novel that basically kicked off the expanded universe explosion, Grand Admiral Thrawn theorized that something akin to battle meditation occurred because of the Emperor. He manipulated their forces to improve their effectiveness in combat. That's why when he died, everything went to hell very quickly. Palpatine tended to overdo it because Palpatine overdid everything. He wanted to blow up planets, so he built a gigantic space station to do so. And yes, I know about the retcon. I'm just keeping this simple. The idea is tied in with the Force's influence on the mind, the classic Jedi mind trick. These aren't the memes you're looking for, except you're not affecting one individual, but whole armies. The influence may seem unbelievably large, but as Yoda insists a bit too strongly, size matters not. In the prequels, the influence of the Sith hindered the Jedi's efforts, masking Palpatine, for instance. Or, as seen in Attack of the Clones with the fight in the arena, the Jedi were getting slaughtered. It's likely because Dooku, who watched the whole thing with the laziness of a man who knew he'd die before the end of the first act in the next movie, he wasn't fighting because he was disrupting their ability to fight, either by clouding their connection with the Force, or perhaps through a form of battle meditation that enhanced the Geonosians while demoralizing the Jedi. While Bastila's ability is first named here, it fits into the larger context of Star Wars and its history. Alright, well, now that I've got some pants on, I can go fight some evil.
This is Carthel Nasty. The Sith are threatening to overrun our position. We can't hold out long against their firepower. All hands to the bridge!
He's one of the Republic's best pilots. He's seen more combat than the rest of the Endar Spire's crew put together. If he says things are bad, you better believe it.
Carth is your first real companion, a soldier, though he saw most action from a cockpit or a bridge, not with a gun, so he makes up for that by using 2 guns when he does go out. He's voiced by Raphael Sbarge, who gives him an everyman tone rather than a grizzled veteran. This does make an odd contrast because Carth is incredibly paranoid.
All I mean is that if you're smart, you won't trust anyone. Not me, not Bastila, and especially not yourself. I've been going through the battle aboard the Endar Spire over and over in my head since we crashed. Some things just don't add up for me. Don't get me wrong, it just seems odd that someone Bastila's party specifically requested to transfer aboard happens to survive. I'm probably wrong, and this is probably nothing, I know. I learned a long time ago not to take things at face value, however.
I have a list in my footlocker of 50 communist collaborators! This doesn't end here. Well into the game, Carth will make observations about things the Jedi do that don't add up for him and fuel his paranoia. Early on, you learn about the defining event of his life, one battle that he never witnessed.
My homeworld was one of the first planets to fall to Malak's fleet. The Sith bombed it into submission, and there wasn't a damn thing our Republic forces could do to stop them.
And that's the reason for his resentment.
5 years ago, the Jedi had just finished the war with the Mandalorians. Revan and Malak were heroes. I was damn proud to have served in their fleet. It was completely unexpected when they turned on us, invading the Republic while we were still weak. Nobody knew what to think, least of all me. Our heroes had become brutal, conquering Sith. And we were all but helpless before them. I mean, think about it. If you can't even trust the best of the Jedi, who can you trust? Malak and Revan and the Sith deserve to die for what they've done. But the ones who fled the Republic and joined them are even worse. The dark side has nothing to do with why they joined with the Sith. They deserve no mercy.
And it ties in with the devastation of his homeworld.
When I think of all the men who betrayed us, the one that stands out above all of them is the one that I respected the most. Saul.
Admiral Saul Karath, Karth's commander, friend, mentor, a hero of the Republic, and a great leader. If you want to win a battle, better call Saul. He betrayed the Republic and joined the Sith. Karth says his leadership is half the reason Malak's doing so well in the war, which I personally don't agree with. It's probably closer to all because Malak's a doofus. Saul was also the one behind the attack on Telos, where Karth's wife and son died.
I remember holding my wife and screaming for the medics, but they didn't come in time.
Obviously, this affected him greatly and is part of why Karth will sometimes get so irritable. What he really wants is to finish Saul off, but instead he winds up having to travel around with me. He knows that's important, that's why he does it, but he has that one thing left now, and he's not going to give it up.
No, I fought Saul for years now, and if I ever catch up to him, he will regret what he's done. He will regret it.
And even though we'll become good friends, that damage Saul caused, that paranoia, he has a hard time shaking that.
As long as this mission stays on course, I'll stick with you. But I won't let you betray the Republic under any circumstances.
We'll get more into Karth later. Right now, I'll have to see if I can sneak past these Sith to get...
For the Republic!
Oh, God damn it. Well, thanks to Leroy Jenkins here, I guess the only option now is to fight our way through a few dozen Sith.
Good thing we have med packs to heal our wounds.
Yeah, is there some medical grade shut the hell up in there? Because you can use some. Eventually we reach the bridge, but there's no Karth and no Bastila, just more Sith.
You better equip your melee weapon. There isn't much room on the bridge, and it's suicide to use a blaster in close quarters. I should equip a melee weapon, too. Either that or I'll have to stay back and use my blaster.
Or, here's an idea. You equip the melee weapon, and I'll hang back with the guns. No? Oh, damn it. Yes, have at thee! Alright, fine. I do this one, you do the next one.
Damn, another Dark Jedi!
Oh man, sucks to be you, Trask. Let me know how this turns out. Soon I make contact with Karth. We're the last two survivors on board, it seems, and we hook up outside the escape pods. Well, when you put it that way, I guess I'll take the pod. With that, there's nothing left but to escape this death trap for a safe landing on Taris. Oh, thank God, the metal spikes broke my fall. Now, I have to warn you, Taris is crazy long. I spent more than a quarter of the time I spent playing the entire game just on this one planet. There's two reasons for this. One is that there's just a lot of plot that happens here. You meet 2/3 of your companions by the time you finish this place, and a lot more stuff doesn't have anything to do with them. This part is going to be much less of the analysis and backstory examination and all of that. I'll be holding that stuff over for the later parts. Oh, and the second reason Taris is so long? Well, KOTOR is infamous for its backtracking. Here's the Knights of the Old Republic experience condensed to 40 seconds.